of doing business. The question is that how does the industry see it? Is it become easier for corporates to do business? To talk about that, I'm joined now by Kiran Mazumdar-Shaw, and she's Chairman and Managing Director of Biocon, of course. Thank you so much for speaking to us on Bloomberg Quint, ma'am. Has it really become easier to do business in India over the last 1 year? We've seen the big jump in rankings, of course, but what has been your experience?
Well, as you can see, the factors that have contributed to this jump from 130 to 100 seem to be in the area of the easier payment of taxes, availing credit, insolvency resolution, enforcement of contracts. And of course, there's a very startling factor which is about much better corporate governance in India when it comes to minorities protection. So I think all these have basically, climbed a few ranks and have contributed to this improved ranking to breaking into the top 100. But on the other hand, if you look at some of the other contributors to ease of doing business, we have a long way to go. If you look at, simple things like starting a business, if you look at, other aspects of, registering properties, getting an electricity connection, trading across borders, all these actually need improvement. Now, I think e-governance has certainly played a very important role in moving the needle in terms of climbing up these 30 positions. And we need to look at some of the low-hanging fruits when it comes to some of these e-governance online models that have helped us to move these needles. Now, property registration is one such area where we are doing very badly. E-governance in land registration is something which we must focus on. Why is it that some states are doing better than others? I know that in many states, registering properties, getting, comfort that there are, that these properties are unencumbered, e-governance can help a lot. And we've done nothing to actually move the needle in that respect. Starting a business, why does it take 30 days to start a business in India, whereas most countries who are in the top 100, it takes less than a week? This is again a very simple opportunity. Again, online, models for starting a business must be adopted. So I think we have a number of opportunities to further improve these rankings. And I think as somebody who is an integral part of corporate India, I look forward to really focusing on some of these low-hanging fruits. And I'm very confident we can actually, climb up maybe 50 ranks next year if we actually focus on some of these areas which are really, really easy to do.
Yeah, we'll come to that in a bit more detail about what we can do. But just one question for you, ma'am. Now, demonetization and GST, both have not been accounted for in this report, two big events in this period. What could these two factors do to India's ranking? Of course, demonetization was not looked at, but GST moving forward in the way it's being implemented today, what impact do you think that will have on ease of doing business?
So I would look at it in 2 or 3 ways. Obviously, GST is a big economic reform that has not been factored in, and I think if we can look at GST going forward, it can be a huge opportunity for us in terms of ease of doing business, because it just simplifies the whole tax structure. That is certainly a very, very important part of our ranking. And I do hope that, with all this constant tweaking of the GST, I hope we get into a simplified structure that can actually help us move the needle dramatically. When it comes to demonetization, I think the big opportunity for us is digital payment and digital gateways. And I think this is where we can actually focus on in terms of ease of doing business. Better transparency, better accountability is something that demonetization can enable us to do. I think GST also enables us to get many more people under the tax net, which actually makes the whole system a lot more under the formal economy as opposed to an unaccounted informal economy. And then you come to other, aspects of e-governance and new reforms. RERA is one such reform, which again I hope can help people in the real estate business to do things in an easier and more transparent and accountable manner. So I think all this will be viewed very positively by World Bank in the next rankings.
You said earlier, ma'am, that India could break into the top 50, and of course it's a stated purpose of this government. But can we really break into the top 50 without key reforms in two areas I'd like to mention: land acquisition or land reforms and labor reforms? Because these are politically difficult to actually implement, be it this government or the previous one or any government.
You're absolutely right. I mean, I personally believe we can break into that top 50 sooner than later, but I certainly believe that land reforms is a big contentious area which we must resolve, and I really believe that e-governance and is the way to go about land reforms. The other thing is, of course, labor reforms. Again, labor reforms is a much more complex area. And if something can be done along the lines of labor equity and an equitable sort of reform for labor, which some states have managed to actually pull off. I think Rajasthan pulled off a pretty good Labor Reforms Act. I think Gujarat is trying to do the same. And if we can actually look at a Labor Reform Act, which actually can help us move up that curve, I think it's something that we need to focus on. I don't have any clear-cut answers at the moment, but I think it's about jobs, it's about job protection, it's about job creation. And I think, today, under the duress of our inability to create new jobs, obviously labor reforms is going to be a pretty tough ask. But if we can focus on this whole area of job creation and equitable job creation, then I think labor reforms becomes an easier task.